Wendy's sells 83 million servings of chili every year. That's enough to fill 8.5 Olympic swimming pools, which is not a visual anyone asks for, but here we are. What's strange is not the number. It's what the chili actually is. It's yesterday's unsold hamburger, chopped up, frozen, and turned into a stew. And somehow, against all logic, it's one of the best things on the menu, which is why today we're taking a look at how Wendy's chili should not work, but does. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History Foods channel. After that, please leave a comment and let us know what other fast food side dishes you would like to hear about. Okay? Someone break out the Guatemalan insanity peppers, because we're making chili. The man behind Wendy's was not an obvious candidate for fast food icon. Dave Thomas was born in 1932 in Atlantic City, New Jersey, adopted at 6 weeks old, and raised in Kalamazoo, Michigan. His early life was rough in the way that gets described as character building by people who didn't have to live it. His adoptive mother died when he was 5. His father remarried twice before Dave turned 10, and the family moved constantly following construction work. He dropped out of school after the 10th grade to work full-time at a restaurant, which he later called his biggest mistake. He eventually got his GED in his 60s, after Wendy's was already a global brand, which is either an inspiring story about lifelong learning or a reminder that formal education is mostly optional if you're willing to work hard enough, possibly both. The restaurant business was the one constant. Thomas worked his way through the industry for years. Short order cook, assistant manager, Army mess hall supervisor during Korea, before landing a pivotal assignment in the early 1960s, turning around 4 failing Kentucky Fried Chicken franchises in Columbus, Ohio. He made them profitable. His mentor in that period was Colonel Harlan Sanders himself, who Thomas described as someone who knew how to get your attention, and it was mostly by cussing you out.
I will wash your mouth out with sweet and tangy chicken. Try it, you gold prude.
In 1968, Thomas sold his stake in those franchises back to KFC headquarters for a cool $1.5 million, the equivalent of about $14,000,2026. He was 35 years old. He took the money, left fried chicken in the rear view, and became fixated on hamburgers. He tasted a McDonald's burger and was unimpressed. As he later put it, it was zero. He wanted something fresh, made to order with real toppings, a burger that treated the customer like an adult. In 1969, he opened the first Wendy's old-fashioned hamburgers in Columbus, Ohio, and named it after his daughter. Sort of. Her real name was Melinda Lou, but her siblings couldn't quite get that out, so they called her Wendy. Thomas later admitted to some regrets about the name, since once Wendy's became a global chain, his daughter lost a significant portion of her privacy to people who assumed she was the company's spokesperson. Dave Thomas got a global empire. Wendy Thomas got strangers asking if she's the one in pigtails. The burgers were square, which was not an accident. Thomas had fond memories of the square patties at QP Hamburgers back in Kalamazoo. The logic was that square corners stick out past the round bun, making the burger look bigger and more generous. It's the same amount of beef, it just looks like more. This was considered a selling point. The original menu had 5 items: burgers, fries, sodas, Frosties, and chili. The chili cost 55 cents, the same as a single patty burger. On opening day, the whole operation ran on 3 employees. Dave Thomas was one of them. Another was a woman named Gloria Ward Sophie, who was simultaneously the bookkeeper, the cashier, and the person making the chili. As for the third employee, history, in a rare act of modesty, doesn't seem to have written it down, which raises the obvious question: why chili? McDonald's doesn't have it. Burger King has never had it. Almost no major fast food chain has ever seriously attempted it. It needs simmering. It needs ladling. It needs someone to actually make it. And yet, Wendy's put it on the menu before they'd served their first burger. Well, there's a reason for that. But to understand it, it helps to understand what chili actually is, and why people have such strong feelings about it. Chili is one of those dishes that feels ancient and inevitable, like it must have always existed. It did not. It's also one of those dishes that people argue about with a passion that seems disproportionate to the stakes. It's a stew, and yet, the most widely accepted origin story puts chili's roots in San Antonio, Texas. in the latter half of the 1800s. And at the center of that story is a group of women known as the Chili Queens. From roughly the 1860s through the early 1940s, these mostly Mexican-American women set up open-air food stands in San Antonio's downtown plazas every evening, cooking and serving chili con carne, tamales, and enchiladas by lamplight until dawn. Tables, colorful tablecloths, wandering musicians. A big bowl of chili with a tortilla cost a dime. The Chili Queens attracted everyone: bankers, cowboys, tourists from the East who'd never tasted anything like it. Writer Stephen Crane, visiting in the 1890s, described the chili as tasting exactly like pounded firebrick from Hades, which he meant as a compliment. O. Henry called the plazas a carnival and Saturnalia. When the railroads reached San Antonio in 1877, visitors started arriving specifically to eat the chili. The city eventually shut the Chili Queens down for good in the early 1940s, citing health regulations. A decision that, depending on your source, was driven equally by genuine sanitation concerns and pressure from indoor restaurant owners who resented the competition. Either way, the women who had essentially introduced chili con carne to mainstream American culture were gone. The dish they'd built remained. By the time chili spread north and west across the country in the early 20th century, it had already begun to fracture. The version that reached the rest of America got beans added to it.
How do you want your chili, Lieutenant? With or without beans?
Last night I had it with beans. I had without beans. Variety.
The beans were added partly for bulk, partly because beans were cheap, partly because once you get far enough from Texas, nobody's enforcing anything. And that's where the trouble began. Texas has never forgiven the beans. In sanctioned chili competitions run by organizations like the International Chili Society and the Chili Appreciation Society International, yes, both of those exist, and yes, they are serious, beans in the traditional red chili are grounds for immediate disqualification. The official ICS rules define traditional chili as meat, red chili peppers, spices, and liquid. Beans and non-vegetable fillers such as rice and pasta are not allowed. Full stop.
Would you like some homemade chili?
Are there beans in it?
Yes.
Then it's not chili. Real chili has no beans in it. But you're from a foreign land, so your ignorance is forgiven.
In 1977, Texas officially designated chili con carne as the state dish. The resolution described it as a pungent, spicy stew made from beef, chili peppers, and other seasonings. Notice what's not in that description? Well, the bean omission was not an accident. Which brings us back to Wendy's. When Dave Thomas put chili on his menu in 1969, he put in beans. He put in whole vegetables. He made it brothy. By the standards of Texas purists, what Wendy's serves is not chili. It is, at its most charitable, a loose interpretation. At its least charitable, it is hamburger soup, and it sells 83 million cups a year. The whole Wendy's chili thing actually started with a garbage problem. In any fast food kitchen, you have to cook ahead of demand, which means some days you make more burgers than you sell. For most chains, that's a simple equation. Leftover patties go in the trash. Thomas, however, looked at a tray of unsold cooked beef and had a different idea. He chopped them up, froze them, and decided they'd go into tomorrow's chili.
You've got to tell the secret of that fabulously tasty chili.
No secret. It's the meat.
It was a genuinely clever solution. Reduce waste, add a menu item, give customers something hot and filling that nobody else was offering. Thomas later said he knew he wanted chili on the menu before the first location ever opened. He just didn't have a recipe yet. That recipe was developed in his own kitchen. His wife, Lorraine Thomas, and their friend, Charlotte Emke, ran what can only be described as marathon cooking sessions until they landed on something that worked. More or less, that same recipe is what Wendy's still uses today. And Thomas was unusually open about what was in it. While most fast food chains treat their recipes like classified documents, he published his in a charity cookbook called Colorado Cooks for Education. The ingredients: ground beef, tomato juice, tomato puree, red kidney beans, small red beans, onion, celery, chili powder, cumin, garlic powder, salt, pepper, oregano, cayenne, and sugar. It sounds like a home cook's pantry. It sounds almost quaint. And as it turns out, it's not quite the whole story. What Thomas published and what actually goes into Wendy's chili are not exactly the same thing. The official ingredient list includes something that didn't make the cookbook, a component listed as flavor enhancer. It's made up of dextrose, salt, yeast extract, silicon dioxide, and modified cornstarch. The dextrose adds sweetness. The modified cornstarch thickens things up. But the real engine in that list is the yeast extract. Yeast extract is a natural source of glutamate, the same compounds responsible for the effects of monosodium glutamate. MSG has had an unfairly bad reputation in the United States, most of which traces back to attitudes towards Chinese food rather than anything approaching actual science. What it actually does is boost umami, that deep, savory, mouth-coating quality that makes food taste more like itself and makes you want to keep eating it past the point of reason.
It's only a wafer thin.
Yeah, I couldn't eat another thing. I'm absolutely stuffed.
Combined with the rest of the flavor enhancer, it's what gives Wendy's chili what one food writer called its craveability in a mass-produced kind of way. None of this is sinister. Plenty of packaged and restaurant foods work the same way. But it does explain something that people who like Wendy's chili have probably felt without being able to name it. There's a reason a cup of what is technically leftover beef and tomato sauce smells the way it does the moment it lands in front of you. Not everyone, however, is impressed. We've already established that chili purists have opinions, and Wendy's version gives them a lot to work with. It has beans, two kinds actually. It has whole vegetables. It leans brothy rather than thick, which puts it closer to a chili-flavored soup than what a Texan would call chili. The International Chili Society would disqualify it immediately, and then probably ask it to leave the premises.
Five-alarm chili, eh? 1, 2... Hey, what the big idea?
Oh, I admit it. It's only 2 alarm, 2.5 tops. I just wanted to be a big man in front of the kids.
The sodium is also worth knowing about. A small serving contains around 1,090 milligrams, roughly 45% of the recommended daily intake. That's typical for fast food, but it's nothing new. On the other hand, if you're trying to make a reasonable choice in a fast food context, Wendy's chili genuinely holds up. A small serving is 280 calories. A large is 370. For comparison, a lot of fast food salads, once you add the dressing, come in higher than that. The protein numbers are legitimately good. 19 grams in a small order, 25 in a large. And Wendy's maintains a fairly rigorous animal welfare program for the beef that goes into their product, covering antibiotic use, sustainability, and supplier audits. It is not health food, but it's doing better than it looks. So why hasn't anyone else tried this? Among major fast food chains, Wendy's is essentially alone in the chili business. A few regional and fast casual chains give it a shot. If you saw the Weird History Food video about how Skyline chili works when it absolutely shouldn't, then you already know the Ohio-based chain serves Cincinnati-style chili, a spiced meat sauce most commonly eaten over spaghetti, which is its own conversation entirely. They're also known for their chili dogs.
Oh yeah, chili dog.
Breakfast of champions.
Culver's, the beloved Midwest chain, offers a mild beef and kidney bean version with a slightly spicier blend than Wendy's. Potbelly makes a thicker version. Wawa and Quick Trip carry it as a hot food option. In Los Angeles, Tommy's has been doing something slightly different since 1946, using chili not as a standalone dish, but as a burger topping, ladled thick over a patty at a walk-up shack on Beverly and Rampart that has had a line outside it for nearly 80 years. But none of them have made it a cornerstone. None of them built their identity around it from day one. And the reason probably comes back to the same logic that made Wendy's do it in the first place. It only makes sense if you design your operation around it. Chili is a smart solution to the problem of unsold cooked beef, but only if you built your system around it from the beginning. Wendy's did that on day one, because Thomas was thinking about waste before he ever opened the doors. Most chains built different systems and different priorities, and retrofitting a chili operation into them is more trouble than it's worth. So when they make too many burgers, they throw them away. Every day, at every major fast food chain that isn't Wendy's, that's exactly what happens. Wendy's has had a rough stretch recently. Weird History Food covered some of their struggles in the video titled The Sad Slow Death of Wendy's, and the customer complaints have been consistent. Food quality that varies by location, staffing issues, the general sense that it's not what it used to be. Prices have also climbed, which hasn't helped.
I'm serious about this stuff.
But almost none of the complaints are about the chili. In a long list of grievances about what's changed at Wendy's, the chili sits above the noise. It still smells the way it always did. It still tastes the way Lorraine Thomas and Charlotte Imke figured out it should taste in someone's home kitchen in 1969, with a modest assist from some yeast extract and modified cornstarch. The numbers make it hard to argue with. 83 million servings a year in the U.S. alone. Ohio leads the country in chili sales, which makes sense given Columbus is where it started. Florida, North Carolina, California, and Texas round out the top 5. Yes, Texas, the state where beans and chili is considered a personality flaw, is the 5th largest market for Wendy's chili. That is a win by any measure. Select locations sell a family size option. In Canada, the chili love has gone further. Canadian Wendy's locations serve chili cheese fries and chili cheese nachos, which is an excellent idea that the rest of the world is sleeping on. What's remarkable about Wendy's chili isn't the recipe, or the MSG, or even the frugal logic of turning yesterday's unsold patties into today's lunch. What's remarkable is that it works. It's been working since the first day the restaurant opened, with 3 employees and a bookkeeper who presumably had other things to do. Dave Thomas was an orphan who dropped out of school, talked his way into the restaurant industry, made a millionaire's fortune rescuing KFC franchises, and then decided what the world really needed was a better hamburger. He put chili on the menu before he'd flipped his first burger, staffed it with the person doing the books, and never took it off. Some ideas are just right from the start. So what do you think? And have you always been a Wendy's chili believer? Or does the leftover burger origin story put you off? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from Weird History Food.